Boy, what's up, everybody? Mark Farzetta here for the Farzy Show. Last night, the Phillies broke me. They broke me. I was absolutely, not even dumbfounded is a word. I was just so disappointed. It got to the point, I'm not at this stage yet as a parent, but I know every parent, I think, says this at one point or another. I know my parents said it to me every once in a while. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. And last night, I found myself actually celebrating when Kyle Schwarber got doubled off first base in the seventh inning, eighth inning of last night's game. I actually was happy. I wasn't angry. And I wasn't even disappointed at that point. I was like, after the game, I was disappointed. Throughout the game, disappointed. But at that exact moment, I felt joy. I felt relief. I felt like they were going to put this game out of its misery at least one out earlier. I wasn't angry at all. I said, thank you, Kyle Schwarber, for making a horrendous base running decision on a fly ball to center field. That's amazing. There was some other bad things that came out of last night's game, in particular, one run. But really, the word that came to mind throughout the game was lifeless. That's the word that was just on repeat in my brain for a number of reasons, and we'll get into that. But also, the NFL draft is tomorrow, and I feel a little sense of relief that we get to focus on something other than the Phillies for that day. And the Phillies are actually off. They have a 1:10 start time today in Flushing, New York against the Mets, as they're one game away from being swept at the hands of the New York Metropolitans. But the 1:10 start time, and then the Phillies are off on Thursday, and then we just focus on day one of the NFL draft and where the Eagles select. One of the latest mock drafts I looked at, actually close to home here in the Inquirer, has the Eagles actually moving up to pick at not 32, 31, 30, no, 24. They have the Eagles moving up to the 24th overall pick to select Walter Nolen. Guy, I feel, having not spoken to him, having not interviewed people at Ole Miss, having not spoken to Big Dom, it gives me a little pause as to whether or not he takes the game of football seriously. Phenomenal talent. But when you hear a report about not really feeling like practicing every once in a while, not wanting to go back into a game due to what he felt was an injury, and Lane Kiffin even questions it, well, then it makes you question just about everything. And it makes you think about the number one fear you have about drafting a young athlete. It's whether or not they love the sport. And this is any sport. It's not just the NFL draft. You can certainly talk about it in basketball. You can talk about it in hockey. You can talk about it in basketball, like whether or not or baseball, you could talk about whether or not you love a sport or you love what the sport brings you. And I have my concerns about whether or not Walter Nolen really loves the sport of football and loves to play the game of football, or just loves every once in a while to have a dominant play here or there and take a couple plays off, because that ain't going to fly here in Philly. But there's this really weird sense I get, and I've talked about this a lot with Howie Roseman when I constantly joke about how this job was a lot more fun when he sucked. When Howie Roseman was terrible at his job, this was so much. The fact that people like me could look brilliant over a guy that's actually going to these going on these visits, going to the Senior Bowl, and he's wrong on a lot of these draft picks. Well, now he's actually pretty good at his job, so it makes my job harder. But when I look at Howie Roseman right now, and I look at this Philadelphia Eagles front office, including Big Dom DeSandro, when it comes to finding out what makes these players tick, there's this trust that has been earned by the Philadelphia Eagles. And if they're looking at a player, whether it's for much different reasons, like Jalen Carter, for instance, and they're looking at that player and they're going, oh, well, no, we think we can get everything. We can get everything out of this guy that we think he can give the sport of football. Then they're going to take him. And he's going to take his talent seriously. That's why we're going to take him. Well, if the Eagles do, in fact, move up, which I think they're going to have to do to get Walter Nolen, if the Eagles, in fact, do move up to take him, then my fears are going to be wiped away. If it was any other team, and I'm not saying if it was the Cowboys, he's just going to suck. I'm not saying if it was the Giants, he's going to be, terrible. I'm not saying it was Washington, he's going to be awful. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the Eagles have earned our trust all of a sudden over the last handful of years with what they do in the NFL draft. And they've really earned our trust in what they've done in the offseason to this point. I mean, this is the conversation about whether or not the Eagles are smarter than anybody else. Well, it seems like they just kind of understand how this system works, whether it's the salary cap, whether it's trades, whether it's moving up in the draft, whether it's drafting. I mean, they redid 2/3 of their secondary in one fell swoop of the NFL draft last year. Didn't see that coming. Was a lot of luck on their side with how far Quinyon Mitchell fell. Absolutely. But the Eagles were ready to strike and knew what they what they could be getting if he was able to fall to where they were. And it worked out phenomenally well to the point of you had 2 rookies in your secondary and you won a Super Bowl. One of those rookies, the second, Cooper DeJean, had a pick 6 on Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, I'd say it worked out pretty well for the Eagles last year. And I'd also say that after winning the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback in Nick Foles, after going back with a different head coach and quarterback and all that stuff, and then go back again and then winning, like over the last 8 years, it's been 7, 8 years, it's been pretty successful here in Philadelphia. And I would say that, yeah, they've earned that trust. So although I have questions about it, I can't look into it in the depth that Big Dom is going to look into it, in the depth that Howie Roseman is going to look into it. And if the Eagles are going to make that pick, then it's not just those guys that are going to be instilling confidence in a guy like Walter Nolen having success in Philadelphia. It's going to be the guys in the locker room and the culture in this with this team that I talk about so often, that every player in that locker room, every player that's new to that locker room talks about the culture. This is a safe place. The Philadelphia Eagles locker room is a safe place for anyone that might have a little off the field issue, anyone that might have a little issue with whether or not they really love the sport of football, whether or not they want to go out there and ball, or whether or not they just want to go out there and sign a multi-million-dollar contract and then kick their feet up. Because that ain't going to fly. And the other person that I trust in all of this when it comes to drafting a defensive player, which I feel the Eagles are doing with their 32nd pick. And when I say with 32nd pick, I mean the asset of the 32nd pick. Not dead on, they're picking at 32, but whether or not they move up a couple spots, whether or not they move back a couple of spots. One of the other drafts I was looking at had James Pierce actually fallen out of the first round. What if the Eagles move back into the second round for another second-round pick? And they draft James Pierce, the edge rusher. What if they move back? I could see any possible scenario playing out. Nothing would shock me as far as the Eagles go with this 32nd overall pick. Moving up, moving back, nothing would really blow me away. But every scenario is out there right now, and every scenario is being explored by Howie Roseman. And if Howie's moving back out of the first round, then it's also a trust that he understands where the draft is going and the player that he wants, or a player that he really wants, is going to be available. And if that player is going to be available later and he could stockpile some more draft picks in the process, well, then by golly, Howie Roseman's going to do it. So we got all that and more to get into on today's show. And just on a side note, tell me if I'm just absolutely bonkers in this. We had learned that Jalen Hurts got married maybe a couple of months ago, right? He was spotted with the wedding ring and all that, and the speculation, and Jalen Hurts get married. Did he get married? It's just fine. Call me dumb. I love that it wasn't announced until recently, like months after the fact. I don't know why that brings me, I don't know why that made me smile, but it wasn't like some from either party, from Bree Burrows, now I guess Bree Hurts, I don't know, his now wife, longtime girlfriend, they met at Alabama. We didn't even know he had a girlfriend until somewhat recently, like about 2 years ago. In this day and age, privacy just isn't a thing anymore. And that's not to say people are prying. Now, if you're an NFL quarterback, people are prying, sure. But also in this world that we live in of everything's announced on social media, there's Instagram pics, there's whatever. It wasn't even confirmed until Jalen Hurts just had this interview with Men's Health magazine where they're like, oh, well, what do we call Bree? And he's like, you can call her my wife. And it's like, oh, Hey, congratulations. That's beautiful. I don't know why that brought the idea that it wasn't like thrown out there like it was some public thing. Like I like the idea of it just being a private thing for the two of them. I don't know why that. I guess just in today's age where everything is just so out there in the open. Everybody just craving attention as opposed to just appreciating the moment you just had in your private life. That's the way that the two of them handle it. I love that. And it's just another thing that, is sports adjacent when it comes to Jalen Hurts that I just admire about the man, Jalen Hurts. You talk about guys that you're not sure whether or not they love football or love what football brings them. I have zero doubt in my mind that Jalen Hurts loves football. Zero doubt. So this is one thing I wanted to point out from yesterday. As the news was confirmed by Jalen Hurts. Finally. Oh, yeah, he got married in the spring. Oh, okay. Well, congratulations. Let me get to your Philadelphia Phillies. You would think, and if you've heard me say this already on the postcast yesterday, then I'm sorry to repeat it, but you would think that the Phillies, after getting spanked by the New York Mets in the postseason last year, that they'd go into Citi Field with a little chip on their shoulder, right? You would think that they'd be really determined to make a statement against the Mets, especially after, you split a good series against the San Francisco Giants, a good baseball team. You just almost sweep the Marlins. You feel like you get right a little bit in that series. And it's a great tune-up to go to Flushing to take on the Mets. You would think that after last year, the way things went down, that they'd be a little extra, there'd be a little extra added motivation to the Phillies beating the Mets. They have one good inning against the Mets in game one. Fall short. Trey Turner, Bryce Harper go down swinging in what ended up being a one-run ball game in the ninth inning. Then you would think there'd be even more extra added motivation to jump out in game two of this series and bats come alive a little bit. You would think there'd be even more extra added motivation for an offense to do better when your starting pitcher has to throw 58 pitches to get through 2 innings of work, and then he is done for the day because what was originally announced as left forearm soreness was later described as Rob Thompson after the game as left forearm tightness. Rob Thompson went over to Christopher Sanchez and said, what's wrong? He's like, I'm just feeling a little tight. Doesn't feel right. He's like, all right, well, you're done. And he takes him out of the game. And then Joe Ross comes in, who has been a punching bag to the, for the first month of the season for many Phillies fans and media, myself included. He gives you 3 scoreless innings, and yet still no extra added motivation, no life from this Phillies lineup. Your bullpen yesterday basically gave you a quality start in 6 innings of work and 3 runs. And the Phillies bats muster 1 run of offense. And even the guy that made that run happen, Johan Rojas, I still can't be ecstatic with him. He had 3 strikeouts in yesterday's game. Lifeless yesterday. No motivation, no spark, nothing. Instead, you got leadoff runners going on in this game, or getting on base in this game. First inning, they don't get anything out of it after Bryson Stott had a leadoff single. Then they go into the 4th inning. Max Kepler leads off with a single to right field. JT Realmuto grounds into a damn near double play. Bohm strikes out, looking at 3 strikes, just like that. Bing, bang, boom, see you later. Johan Rojas looks at a fastball. He goes down in the 4th inning. 5th inning, another leadoff runner. Bryson Stott gets another single. Good for him. Trey Turner goes down chasing a slider. 3 pitches, goes down in that at bat. Bryce Harper goes up 3-0 in this at bat. Gets 2 cookies, 2 meatballs over the middle of the plate. Takes them. He ends up working a walk. But like, this is where the on-base percentage and batting average argument doesn't make any sense to me. Like, okay, fine, he got on base. What did he do? I need runs. I need him to swing the bat. That's what Bryce Harper does. That's what he's getting paid to do. And he takes those pitches. I don't know if he just does. I don't know what the batter's eye looks like to him. Does he not see the baseball? I don't know. I don't know what it looks like to him in Flushing, okay? I have an idea of what it looks like to him in Citizens Bank Park. The 3 home runs he hit on the homestand would kind of be indicative of that. But he walks, all right? First and second, 1 out. Schwarber grounds out to first base. Second and third, 2 outs. Nick Castellanos. The pitch that Griffin Canning made to Nick Castellanos yesterday at 2-2, throws him a slider. This was the shining example that everyone has about Nick Castellanos chasing pitches low and away. Every once in a while, he shows some really great plate discipline. This pitch, I kid you not, was at least 1.5 feet, 2 feet outside the strike zone. And yet, Nick Castellanos flails away at this pitch like any horrible swing you've ever seen him have. This one was right there with the worst of them. And Nick Castellanos, for the majority of the season, has been one of the Phillies' best hitters. Not yesterday. Not in this series. And certainly not on that swing. You're talking about a 1-run ball game at this point. At this point in the 5th inning. You're talking about a 1-run ball game. Couldn't get anything going. Phillies got a leadoff base run in the 8th inning. That was Kyle Schwarber before he was doubled off first base. This is 9 runners left on base yesterday. Phillies had 9 hits in yesterday's game. I have it right here. Is that the pitching? Yeah, it's a pitching. Scusi. Here we go. Phillies in yesterday's game. You can't even see my own stuff there. Yeah, 8 hits. Okay. This is what the lineup did in yesterday's game. A couple multi-hit games from Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott. 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position. 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position. That's actually pretty good, considering what we had seen from the Phillies in Game 1 of this series. It's pretty good from what we saw from the Phillies really recently. But the thing that makes this stick so bad is that this is a very similar feeling to what I had going into the Dodgers series. Have an important series like that against a team that is projected to go deep into the playoffs, a team that you actually had success against last year. They loaded up even more in the offseason. What were the Phillies going to do against them? They took 2 or 3 from the Dodgers. That had us feeling really good. Really, really good. And now they failed to complete the sweep of the Marlins, which they had in hand if it wasn't for Rob Thompson's misfirings and some defensive blunders. It was going into New York and dropping the first 2 games of the series, so now you don't even have a chance of winning the series. And even with Zach Wheeler on the hill today, you still feel like, well, that's great. Zach Wheeler could go 7 innings and allow 2 runs, which, by the way, with the amount the bullpen's been used recently, they're going to need him to. You still don't feel like the Phillies are going to score 3 runs in a game against the Mets. And the thing that stings the most is that this was a big early season series. You're not going to face them until the end of June now. And you've already lost this series. And the way they went down yesterday, again, by the time I got to the end of the game, I wasn't even angry. I was disappointed. A little shot in the arm here. A little shot of life. And there was nothing to it. It was guys going through the motions. I'll give credit. Max Kepler, hey, hell of a sliding grab there in the bottom of the 8th inning. Saved the Phillies from a double, or saved a double from the Mets, that is. Yeah, great. Love that effort. But where are the guys that are supposed to be playing the roles of heroes here? Like, you had a 2-game losing streak that Christopher Sanchez stopped in St. Louis. Christopher Sanchez helped you split with the San Francisco Giants in a ridiculous game. 12 strikeouts, phenomenal control of his changeup. And then yesterday, he doesn't have it, and the Phillies offense is not there to come to his rescue. And there was an early point in yesterday's game, first inning. Christopher Sanchez was facing, I think it was Vientos, and he throws him a changeup that was well outside. And JT Realmuto's got to react quick, get there, and flash the leather. And he catches it well outside, and his head kind of snaps back to look at Christopher Sanchez like, "You all right, bro?" Like, there was a look of concern through that catcher's mask. You could clearly see. And then as it turns out, JT Realmuto says after the game, like, "Yeah, I knew in the bullpen that Christopher Sanchez was just a little different today, and not in a good way." Like, JT Realmuto was gushing, and rightfully so, after his last game where he was the battery mate of Christopher Sanchez and said, "Oh, man, when that changeup is on like that, oh, man, forget about it." And then this game, it was like, oh, yeah, he didn't have it. Velocity also on his sinker was down a little less than 2 miles per hour. So that ain't good. But the changeup is the bread and butter, and that bread and butter was not working. And the Mets smelled blood in the water. And they just let him go. 58 pitches through 2 innings of work yesterday. The good news, Ranger Suarez made a rehab start. Did not supposed to, I think, pitch 75 pitches. He stopped around 56. Went 5 innings. Overall, good start for him. Nice, fine. Justin Crawford yesterday didn't play. Had the day off, I believe. So at least they could be getting Ranger Suarez back in case of somebody having to go on an IL stint here. But after the game, Christopher Sanchez says he doesn't think it's going to be anything serious. Early examination showed that it just was, again, a little tightness in the forearm, but he's confident he'll be able to get back out there. And Rob Thompson also said if they need to juggle things around with an off day, they can do that to give him a little extra rest. They might want to do that anyway in case they need to move Aaron Nola back in the rotation a little bit. But for me, it was just a lifeless game from the Phillies in a game where you would expect them to have a little backs against the wall mentality. I will give the Phillies credit for this, though. They are doing everything in their power to make sure, to guarantee that really they're not peaking too early. That's one thing. They're definitely not peaking too early. But overall, even especially if you talk about this team getting swept, but even if they don't, let's just say today's another lifeless game and they somehow win. Maybe the Mets are resting on their laurels. I don't know. But even if just now losing this series to the Mets and seeing this Phillies team make a lot of the same mistakes that they've made, Rob Thompson didn't get some wild contract extension at the end of last year. He got the, hey, you're not going to be a lame duck manager extension at the end of last year. I can't listen to a manager talk about how Aaron Nola is only going to be good when the weather's nice. Like, is the weather nice in October? Nah, weather's not so nice in October. I'm kind of going to need him in October. I can't watch a manager continue with the dominoes that he knocks over with the mistakes that he makes. I went into it with Jesus Luzardo in Game 3 against the Marlins. Jesus Luzardo goes out there and is rolling. Defense makes a couple of mistakes, get his pitch count up to 88 pitches. He doesn't come back out for the 8th inning. 88 pitches, he's coming back out. Now, what's that mean? That means you got to go with the bullpen, obviously, an inning earlier than anticipated, which is what Rob Thompson decided to do as opposed to what Jesus Luzardo forced him into doing. Orion Kerkering comes in, 3-run home run. Then you got to go in the extra innings, and you got to use Matt Strahm. Maybe Matt Strahm's available for the Phillies to take over for Aaron Nola in the 7th inning instead of having Aaron Nola go out there in the 7th inning to start that off. Maybe you don't go through that domino effect. And now you got to burn through more bullpen arms because your starting pitcher yesterday only lasted 2 innings. Like, the question comes up a lot. It came up last night on the postcast about the bullpen being bad, and the bullpen is bad. Let's not act like Rob Thompson has got diamonds in the rough out there that he's just missing. No, it's just overall management. So what do you do with a bad bullpen? Well, you try to ask them to do less, not more. And the domino that was set off was he didn't let Jesus Luzardo go one more inning. So then he tries to make Aaron Nola go one more inning to save the bullpen that he just overused in Game 3 against the Marlins. And then that falls apart to the tune of Jose Ruiz giving up a 3-run home run to Francisco Lindor. And then that dominoes or really snowballs into, oh, darn it. Now, there's no predicting that all of a sudden Christopher Sanchez is only going to pitch 2 innings, but when it rains, it pours in this scenario. And it's raining a lot harder than it should be right now when it comes to this Phillies bullpen. And the guy that ain't helping that is Rob Thompson. Now, you go back to any time a manager is fired or a hitting coach is fired. Like, everyone says, a lot of people, I should say everyone, because some people are actually happy about it. But most people look at it and go, hey, it's not Joe Girardi standing in the batter's box trying to get hits. It's not Rob Thompson coming out of the bullpen trying to get outs. It's not his fault. Okay, so when is it? And one thing I'll give Dave Dombrowski credit for is he said this when Joe Girardi was fired. The Phillies were 22-29 when they moved on from Joe Girardi. It was early June. Rob Thompson took over, and I had the number last night. Let's see if I still have it here in my notes. I don't, because I'm an idiot. I think Phillies were 65 and 45 or something when Rob Thompson took over to the rest of the year, and obviously they went to the World Series. This team just looks like they're going through the motions. That's what they look like right now. And I know everybody talks about, they'll get hot in June, or, they don't really start till June and all that, right? I don't know if Rob Thompson's going to have till June, in all honesty. And you guys know me, I am the last person usually to the party of fire the manager or fire the coach. But man, if the Phillies continue with the same exact mistakes, Rob Thompson ain't keeping his job. And this might be a clean house scenario, because Kevin Long is a guy that I know Trey Turner loves and Bryce Harper loves. But if you continue to see a very similar approach to the plate, really, if you see regression, for the people that wanted to stick their chests out about, the Phillies go out there and they walked more than anybody in spring training. Oh, congratulations. That's whoopity-doo. Chase rate was phenomenal for a while. And now I don't even know where they are, but it can't be near the top anymore. They've had to plummeted in where they've been in the rankings there. But I can see the Phillies cleaning house a bit. I've thought about who the next guy was. The first guy that jumps to mind is Dusty Wathan. And I know a lot of people are going to look at that and be like, that's not a guy that's going to have authority in the clubhouse. I mean, the guys that he helped bring up through the system, I should say, when he was at, AAA, whatever, they ain't here right now. It's been a minute since Dusty Wathan was down there in the minors. So Calitri, I couldn't see that happening. Is there some bigger name manager out there that all of a sudden the Phillies are going to bring in? Are they going to go for that, that sexy name like they did with Joe Girardi? Because it seems like these are things that kind of go back and forth. Guys are going to be players, managers, and guys that want to be in charge. One thing, going back to it with Dave Dombrowski, I didn't finish the thought, but one of the things I give him a lot of credit for is acknowledging that people try to put a measuring stick on managers. You can lose you 7 games. Maybe they'll win you 2, that kind of thing. I think that's ridiculous. And this is what Dombrowski said, and I agree with this. I think it's a good mentality. The manager is responsible for the overall environment of the clubhouse. And I think that's something that Joe Girardi had a tremendous influence on, and unfortunately it was in a negative way. I think Rob Thompson was exactly what the Phillies needed when they needed it. And now it's a matter of when are you going to be ready to move on from that? So I would not be shocked if we're talking about in the next couple of weeks, Rob Thompson's job really being called into question, not just by us, not just by the fan base, not just by media, but by Dave Dombrowski. And whether or not Bryce Harper, because you bet your ass he's going to have a say in the matter, whether or not he's going to look at the situation and go, yep, it's time for a new voice. Some might say fat chance, but if the Phillies continue to underachieve with this payroll, and especially with this payroll maybe being in its last hurrah with a guy like Kyle Schwarber, well, I very much doubt John Middleton is going to give one rat's booty about whether or not Bryce Harper likes the new manager. And that's not to say he's a hard ass. They gave him the year extension despite the regression overall of this team since making it to a World Series. That's just watching a team make the same mistakes again and again and again. Hey, Joe Girardi didn't get June to turn the Phillies around when he got let go, again at 22 and 29. I don't think Rob Thompson is going to get till June to show that this team could be a contender again. So right now, he is definitely under a microscope, I believe, not just by the fan base, but by the front office. Under the microscope. The job will truly be called into question, I believe, over the next 3 weeks. Phillies get swept by the Mets. Phillies get beat up by the Cubs, who have just been absolutely dominating teams. I don't know how many 10-run games they have now. I just saw it yesterday. I think it was Bob Nightingale that put it out there. They're just putting up runs left and right with that lineup. But I absolutely think that Rob Thompson is under the microscope right now in a series like this against the Mets. And if this team comes out again lifeless, the more that happens, the quicker the dismissal of Rob Thompson is going to happen. NFL draft. Was looking at the Inquirer, and I didn't see their previous mock drafts. If they've had them, I'm sure they had, but I was really interested in this move. So Walter Nolen out of Ole Miss, defensive tackle, just absolutely dominant, an absolute beast, 6'4", just owns the middle of the line of scrimmage. You put him next to Jalen Carter, any given down, I'm doing cartwheels about the how much promise that would have. And this is a guy that's not just a running game stopper like Jordan Davis, for instance. This is a guy that you can put in there in passing downs, and still he could wreak havoc on quarterbacks. Both ways when it comes to stopping the run, when it comes to getting after the pass, the quarterback, he can do both those things at an extremely high rate. The question is what I laid out earlier in the show, just how much he loves the game of football or what the game of football brings to him. But in the latest Inquirer mock draft, I'll call it, the Eagles actually move up from 32 to 24 to get Walter Nolen. 24 is certainly striking distance for Howie Roseman and company. With the amount of assets they have in this year's draft and next year's draft, the potential of moving Dallas Goedert, for instance, even the potential of moving a Jordan Davis. Hey, you don't want that defensive tackle, maybe you want this one. Even with that potential, the Eagles are looking at the situation right now. What's in what's in reach here? What's in arm's length that we could go to? I see 24 as certainly being a spot that they can move up to. When you start to get into the ideas of a Tyler Warren, whoever it might be, to move up in the draft for guys like that, the obvious Abdul Carter to 3 or 4 with the Patriots, and that it ain't. They're not moving AJ Brown anyway. That's where I find well out of reach for the Eagles. That's what I will put past the Eagles. But 24 well within reach. So I can see this happening. The Eagles also, I feel, want to make sure that they're shoring up their defensive line. With the way this is shaping up, though, and I look at the defensive end position, for me, I think the biggest need for the 2025 Eagles is defensive tackle. They need someone to go out there and replace what Milton Williams did for Jalen Carter in this defensive line. Now, I think Jalen Carter did a lot more for Milton Williams than Milton Williams did for him, but with the role that was carved out for Milton Williams, he played really well. And the Eagles are going to miss that solid number 2 next to Jalen Carter. I feel, assuming that the Eagles pass him through all their tests, through all their intense background checks and talking to witnesses and all that, whatever, about the type of character witnesses, about the type of player Walter Nolen really wants to be, that if the Eagles do take him there, then I have a lot less concern. I have a lot less concern. And I start focusing on the talent level that he has. And I start focusing on the idea that him and Jalen Carter would be a wrecking crew in the middle of that defensive line. And I also think that the Eagles upgrade essentially from what Milton Williams did last year. I think by the end of the year, you see a guy like Walter Nolen actually play better than what Milton Williams was giving you. I say that because Milton Williams had a progression to get to the point that he was at last year. I think a guy like Walter Nolen, that progression is almost immediate. And that's the type of impact he can have. Also, you talk about a guy like Jalen Carter hitting a rookie wall when he hit a rookie wall 2 years ago. You can certainly talk about that for Jordan Davis when he hit his rookie wall. Things will be a lot easier for Walter Nolen if he has a guy like Jalen Carter playing at the level that he's playing at. He's not used to that. That's for sure. So I could see this happening. I could see the Eagles moving up to trade him. Moving up to 24 to get him. The other interesting thing that I see here goes on the defensive end side of things, and that's where you talk about a guy like James Pierce, because in this draft, James Pierce out of Tennessee would go early in the second round. I could see the Eagles trading back to get another second round pick, maybe another third. And if James Pierce does fall off the board into the second round, or should we fall into the second round, that the Eagles would take that spot. Now, you brought in and you have guys at the edge rusher position that you like. They obviously like Jay Luxant. They love what they saw from Nolan Smith and his progression last year. You brought in Joshua Uche. Amoro Ojomo is a guy that you see progressing. Azeez Ojulari, even if he does stay healthy and have a monster season, how do the Eagles bring him back? Because you can't just keep rewarding everybody like you did with a guy like Zach Bond. So they're going to need to still take defensive ends, or a defensive end at least, that you feel like can be here for years to come. Guys that you can kind of, let progress. Maybe a guy like James Pierce is that guy. Everyone talks about his speed. I've talked a lot about Nick Scorton as well. If he's on the board at 32, that's the one player I could see at 32 that the Eagles would take at 32. Another edge rusher. But I feel like that's still going to be a coveted position. I feel the guarantees here for the Eagles are defensive tackle. I feel like defensive end are those are the two biggest guarantees. And then I feel tight end is another spot that the Eagles are going to be going after in this draft. But despite the Eagles bringing in the defensive ends, like if the Eagles go into this season with the D ends that they have right now, I still feel pretty good about it. It's a matter of what the future is going to hold for the Eagles in that regard. Because if any of those players that I mentioned, whether it's Uche, whether it's Ojulari, if they do take off, well, then you're going to be talking about bringing them in at big money next year, and you're still in the same, you still have the same problem that you had going into this year, which is you still have other guys that you want to pay. Cooper DeJean, Quentin Mitchell, and you can talk all you want about, it's a good problem to have. Well, yeah, I'm not really a big believer in a good problem to have. Because a good problem to have, what is it? It's still a problem. But hey, get me to that point. That's what I will say. That's the positive. The problem isn't having the good problem. The positive is being in a position where you got to make that tough decision and say, oh, well, because this year worked out so well, now I have a problem. But while you're going through it this year, hey, Azeez Ojulari is on his way to a 12-sack, 13, 14-sack season. All right. Yes, please. Let me see that happen. Joshua Uche's got 8 sacks. All right. That's great. Let me get to that point, because then that means that this defense didn't miss a beat after being as dominant as they were last year. That's where I'm at right now. I do see the Eagles focusing on the defense in the early goings of the draft, and then I see them adding on the offense. They're going to take an offensive lineman probably as well, but I think if you're looking at a board that's going to your healthy mix of need versus availability, best player available, I think you're looking at defensive tackle, and I think you're looking at defensive end. That's how I think the Eagles are approaching this tomorrow. First round NFL draft. But one thing I will guarantee is the Eagles ain't picking at 32. Howie Roseman's way too antsy to make something happen. How about that story from last week? Was it 2 weeks ago? Last week? I first saw it on, I think it was Dan Patrick. Howie Rose. It was either Dan Patrick or Jim Eisman. Blanking on his name. Rich Eisen. Jeez. It was either on those two shows that Mike Mayock was talking about how Howie would just go up to him at the Senior Bowl and be like, you and I have never done a deal. We need to do a deal. Let's talk and do a deal just for the sake of doing a deal. Like that's odd, but I guess that's how he is. Just being antsy all the time. Also, another name that would be available, potential for the Eagles to move up, Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. This particular mock draft had him going at 27 to Baltimore. I don't see the Eagles solving the safety problem. I'm still very much on the Justin Simmons bandwagon, folks. I'm still very much on that train. So if the Eagles are going to add to the safety spot, I think they go through this draft, or they come through the draft with still Tristan McCollum and Sidney Brown, God forbid, Sidney Brown as their safeties. Opposite Reed Blankenship, of course. That's what I see. And then, what was this? 2 weeks into training camp, or 2 weeks from training camp, and Justin Simmons is an Eagle? No way. Oh my God, shocked. That's how I see that going on. Hey, let me tell you about the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code Farzy. Get $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. Want to go to the game, the concert, the comedy show? Game Time app has you covered. Also, don't forget about Game Time Picks feature on the Game Time app. You can filter out all the fluff with this wonderful feature. That's right. You get right down to it. The best seats at the best prices on the Game Time app. And you can also view your seat's vantage point before you buy it. So you take the guesswork out of buying tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code Farzy. Get $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. How about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs? That's PHLSportsNation.com. How about Brett's amazing inventory at Sky Motor Cars, SkyMotorCars.com. Check out that inventory at SkyMotorCars.com. Let's get into the chat check. April, good morning. Ari, East Coast Ari, ladies and gentlemen, walking around New York. I saw you. I don't know if I opened it. I think you hit me up on the old IG. Maybe I should read that. I saw that late in the day. My apologies. Ari, good morning. Wine Niners Wine. What's going on, Farzy and friend? Little Toots softball. Yeah, those days. Enjoy them, Mark. I am enjoying them. She got a couple of hits. Here you are, Ari. A lot of Phillies fans walking around, or Phillies hats walking around Manhattan. I'm yelling, "Go Birds!" till I lose my voice. Well, there you go. You'll join me in those ranks. Thank you. Jeremy, what's going on? Good morning, everyone. Oh, one thing I did tell Little Toots. I said, Little Toots, you got to be more aggressive. Got to go after that ball. And from that point on, she did. Defensively. Smothered that ball. Jeremy, hello. Good morning. Joe Ross was stellar. He was. All the credit in the world. Kevin, good morning. Phillies are just lifeless. No spark, no fight at all. Right? Philly Magic 365, good morning. Sire. I said it before. I'll say it again. Stubbsy's gone, and all the energy and the vibes went with him clearly. Farzy, another Phillies loss to the Metropolitans. I mean, we have been saying this. I'm glad you're not sticking up for the Phillies and Dombrowski anymore. I mean, sticking up for. I don't like. I do believe some people win the benefit of the doubt. Last year, Dave Dombrowski and Whit Merrifield. A lot of people were excited to get Whit Merrifield. He has been the apple of a lot of people's eye for a long time, and the Phillies got him, so a lot of people were happy. Now, when I knew he was going to succumb to the bench role for the Phillies, that kind of made me go, not sure this is it for the Phillies. And it turned out it wasn't. And then the Austin Hayes move at the trade deadline was just dumb, absolutely dumb. And now Max Kepler, I give credit. He's not stellar by any means. I think I have his numbers here. That's the thing with the thing. Kepler, 240 with a 337 on base percentage. That's 337 batting average or on base percentage for that guy at bottom of the lineup. All right. I like that. But still not blowing me away by any means. And the bullpen, what are we doing? And this is on the heels of, again, the bullpen having a quality start, 6 innings, 3 runs last night. But yeah, this year has been not impressive, to say the least, when it comes to Dave Dombrowski, even the offseason included in that. Jonathan, hello. Mets, your most hated rival is your daddy. Yes, you are our daddies right now. I have no rebuttal. My team sucks against your team right now. That's where we're at. I can't have a rebuttal until my team, A, looks like they have a shot of life in them, and B, wins. And as I said, even Zach Wheeler, like I said on last night's postcast, I want the Mets to win today. I think the faster we move on from Rob Thompson, the faster this team turns it around. That's where I'm at. Defend the Constitution too? All right. Mets are your dad. Okay, well, I prefer daddy in this scenario. All right, it's more appropriate. Swooping is lame. What? Just feels like Philly will never be Boston as a city of champions. Your indoor teams are in a cocoon. Okay. William Stark, good morning. Hello. Sean Kilrain, good morning. Ranger Suarez pitched 5 scoreless last night. 2 hits, 2 walks, 59 pitches where he was at. Yeah. Yep. Pierce. Did I miss something? Oh, like somebody said Pierce. Yep. Pierce. They definitely need defensive end help. Oh, James Pierce. Sorry. Yeah, that they do. Saw a mock draft we trade with Minnesota for 24 to select. Yes, Walter Nolen. That was for the Inquirer. Yeah, I think I gave my thoughts on that. Yes. Thanks as well. Hoping on the pod. Oh, yeah, I'm coming on the podcast with Sean and company and Joe. Talking the Buddy Ryan era of Eagles football. Ringo Hernandez Farzi on like 4 espressos is still more calm. Little drop left in that one. Oh, this one actually my nephew brought me this back from Disney World. If I show Mickey Mouse, do I get like taken off YouTube immediately? Mickey. Buongiorno Topolino. Good morning, little mouse. I'm not the little mouse. He's a little mouse, but I enjoy the espresso cup. Anyway, I have not thrown a ball, but I'll try to coach. Put me in. Can't be worse. Philly Magic, you might be right. Wait, let's go. Okay, I'm sorry, I got distracted there. Presenter on like 4 espressos is still more calm than me just waking up. How does that man keep his heart rate under 130? I say this. You've probably heard me say this before. I'm a really easygoing dude. Like not a lot gets me going, except sports. Like in life, a lot of times I'm like, none of us are getting out of this alive. Let's all enjoy it. Like that's kind of my mindset about everything. Except sports. Sports, I have a little bit more urgency about things. Don't get me wrong, I do have a temper. I heard Chris Rock describe this recently. I won't get into the specifics of his story, but it has nothing to do with Will Smith. But basically, not that I've seen a therapist about it or anything. He said he saw a therapist as a kid, and the therapist told him, "You're afraid of your temper." And I think that's a good way to describe it. I think for people that have a temper, I'm a little afraid of my temper. I keep that locked away most times. But yeah, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I enjoy the espresso just because it gets the caffeine into the system faster. And if I drink espresso, I'll have 2 espressi, I guess, if you're being technical. And then I'll drink water most of the day. Maybe I'll take a little siesta in the middle of the day because of my schedule. And then I'll have another espresso and then I'll be good. That's how I live my life. There you go. Do. The more you know. Jags. Hello. Did you praise the Phillies bullpen in the offseason? I don't think I did. I don't know what will give me cause for that. Jim, no energy or approach at the plate at all this season, right? William Stark, might be the time for a different voice in the clubhouse. I agree. Proven, hello. I get you want to attack the bats and the pen, which is all well and fair, but you don't ever say Aaron Nola is worth. You're talking about worth, somebody being worth the contract in sports. Aaron Nola is definitely not worth 7 years, $172 million. Definitely put it to you like that. That we can agree on. NFL draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah thinks the Eagles might trade up in the first round to draft Jalen Walker. Thoughts? I would be very surprised if that was the way it went down. Now, Sean Kilrain, who's pointing this out, Daniel Jeremiah is also the one that just said Walter Nolen is it's highly, I think he said unlikely. I'll describe it as unlikely. I don't know if he said highly unlikely, just not unlikely that the Eagles get Walter Nolen. He sees him going around 15. And that might be out of range for the Eagles, and I would describe that. But I wouldn't see them getting Jalen Walker. Supreme Live, hello. I think we are all done with Topper. Like, he was a good replacement for a couple of years, but he's not winning us anything. I'm on the same page. Brian Pumper, hey, what's up? I'm so happy this is happening right now. Can't do absolutely nothing in the offseason, expect different results. Right? Jason A. Hey, Jason A. Facts, Brian, all the top teams got better. Oh, facts, Brian, yeah. We need Suarez back sooner rather than later. April, what's up, April? Phillies had no life yesterday. It's like they don't want to turn it on until later in the year. Well, as I said, they're doing a great job of not peaking too early, unless that Dodgers series was them peaking too early. They're losing their minds. Anyway, Phillies are trying to get another manager fired. Yeah, pretty much Sean Gillespie. Good morning, Sean Gillespie, by the way. You know what the Phillies continue to do? They just continue to remind me of the Sixers. And, you know, last night, I've actually had this thought a couple of different times. The Giant series, I had it. The Braves series, I had it. Yeah. The Cardinals series, I had it. I actually missed the Sixers for a second. And here's why. Watching the Sixers at the end of the season this past year, the last month, I watched guys fighting for their careers. Like, I watched guys just knowing they probably weren't going to win the game, but if they could get 20 minutes of good film, they could get 30 minutes of good film, they knew it would change their lives. And I don't care that if you hate the Sixers, if you love the Sixers, whatever. Like, if you're a sports fan, isn't that what you want to see? If you're not watching your team win, for instance, like if you're just watching a game that you really don't care about the outcome, but you just want to see a good game, right? You want to see guys give a damn. That's what I saw. Right now, I'm watching this Phillies team, and I don't see that. Like, again, all the motivating factors to go into the series against the Mets, and they're laying an egg. Like, that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. I'm like, give me Quentin Grimes trying to go coast to coast after getting a rebound. You know, give me Quentin Grimes dropping 30 in a game. Give me a Dambona blocking a shot or two on one defensive trip. Give me that instead of strike three. All right. Greg Benson. Hello, Greg. It's one thing to say, hey, just play 500 ball till June, then turn it on. It's another thing to have to endure it. You're absolutely right, but it's also another thing to watch a team be lifeless. J Balls, what's going on? J Balls, hey. Carter is a stud, true, but you're not giving Sweat and CJ credit. Yeah, I was never really a big Josh Sweat guy. I will say that much. And what, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson you're talking about? Giving him credit? I give him a lot of credit. I don't like that he's not here anymore. But if you're telling me you're adding Justin Simmons, all right. The Sillies lost. That's funny. My 98-year-old uncle would call him Uncle Andy would call them the Sillies. He'd be watching baseball. Lived with my parents for the last couple of years. He passed away years ago. But he'd be like, oh, this Sillies team. Like, it's just funny. He died like 10 years ago, and it's still the same problem. The Sillies. Oh, you're watching the Sillies again? Turn it around, Farzi. You still have belief? I still have belief. But my belief is that they turn it around because they fire Rob Thompson. That's where my belief comes in. So do you call that belief? I don't know. I think you're asking for a drastic change. That's what I'm doing. I'm asking for a drastic change. Hey, Danny. Hey, Danny. How you doing? All right. I'm taking the over. Howie will trade out of the first round. Wouldn't be surprised. Philly Magic 365. I know we need a defensive tackle on edge, but there's a lot of depth there. As far as safety, it's Starks and I'll say this name right. Amanwari. I wouldn't. Yeah, I would be surprised if they took a safety. I would be surprised. Brian Pumper. I mean, we watched lifeless and laziness on the 76ers for years in the form of a superstar who wears 21. Yeah, but that's I understand what you're saying, but I'm talking about the end of the Sixers season when it was guys fighting their asses off for their careers. That was at least enjoyable to watch. Also, you knew the outcome. They were going to lose. But the Phillies are becoming more and more like the Sixers just in terms of a lot of promise and a lot of disappointment. At least the Phillies actually made it to a championship. They just didn't win it, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of sucks. Oh, pin 9617. Hello. Thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys are wonderful as per usual. Hey, quick turnaround for the Phillies and me. Phillies added at 110 today against the New York Mets. They'll go against the lefty Peterson, excuse me. Zach Wheeler gets the ball for the Phils. Zach Wheeler 2-1 with a 3.73 ERA. David Peterson coming into this one 1-1 with a 3.27 ERA. He has struck out 26 batters in 22 innings of work. Compare that to Zach Wheeler, 41 strikeouts and 31 and a third. Also in those 22 innings, Peterson has walked 8 and given up 2 home runs. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name is Mark Farzetta. I'll be back on the Locked On Phillies YouTube channel after the Phillies game today for your Locked On Phillies postcast. So make sure you guys like and subscribe to that. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the Farzy Show YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Jacob Media YouTube channel as well. Back with you guys after the Phillies game today on Locked On Phillies YouTube, and then I'll be back with you guys for the Farzy Show right here on the Farzy Show YouTube channel and Jacob Media. Catch you guys tonight and tomorrow. Until then, have a great rest of your day. See you. Bye.